All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here alongside Anthony Pyne of RTÉ Sport Online. And we're also joined by journalist David Sneyd and also former Republic of Ireland international Keith Treacy. They'll be picking their LOI teams and player of the year a little bit later on. You'll also be hearing the words cup and final in conjunction a lot as we reflect on Sunday's final between Shelbourne at Loan and the women's decider. And then also we're going to look ahead to the men's showpiece. But first, we're going to talk about the Champions League draw, which just happened on the RTÉ News channel a couple of hours ago. But just after that, Anthony, then was the news that FSG, Fenway Sports Group, are putting Liverpool up for sale. And it's coming at a time where there's a sense that Liverpool are at a crossroads on and off the pitch.
Yeah, it's an interesting development. I think it's not a major shock, really. There has been noises that they've been considering this for a while. And I don't know, there are reasons why to do it now. I mean, I guess it's sort of happening at a time when Liverpool are stuttering a bit on the pitch, and they've obviously dipped badly this year. But I think this has been in the works for a while. Maybe the global economic situation, that this is the time for them to try and pull the trigger on it, because they bought Liverpool for £300 million, Raf, 12 years ago, which was a snip. It was an absolute steal. Liverpool were a mess at that time. They are venture capitalists. This is what they do. They spotted an opportunity to come in and they got the club for peanuts, really. What would it be worth now? I don't know. I mean, if you're going to take Chelsea as a reference point, you're probably looking at about in and around 4 billion is what they would be looking for. Now, in their statement, I think they say they're looking for investors and shareholders as opposed to an outright sale. So it would be interesting what exactly that means. Would they sort of hand control of the club over gradually? Is that what they're thinking? We don't really know, but they have a strange relationship, I think, with the Liverpool fan base, because they've done great things. They've expanded the stadium. They built a brand new state-of-the-art training base. The club won the Premier League for the first time in 30 years. They won a Champions League. They brought in Jurgen Klopp. So they've done lots of good things, but they've sort of taken a few little missteps along the way as well. Like they tried to increase the ticket prices a few years ago, and there was a walkout during the match because of that. They tried to trademark the word Liverpool, which really annoyed the fan base as well, because it a lot of independent business people around the ground, it would have put them out of business. That's their livelihood. They wouldn't be able to sell scarves and badges, etc. And then obviously the Super League breakaway as well was a major source of discontentment among all fans, really. So it's a weird relationship. It's been a little bit fractured, and now what's happening is that they've been very smart in that they're self-sufficient. Liverpool, they kind of put money, what the club earns, they put back in. Like the owners don't really invest their own money, and that's work. That's great when you're successful. They've made some very good, smart buys, but when you start to struggle and slip back a little bit, then people start to look at, why aren't you buying a new midfielder? Why aren't we getting a new striker? You're looking at Manchester City, you're looking at Newcastle, clubs like this. And I don't know, maybe that's there's an element of that as well. They just sort of realize which way the wind is blowing here. Like especially with the Newcastle ownership, maybe they're just thinking, oh, we can't really compete here without just throwing, crazy money at this indefinitely. And that's not really what they're all about. So it's an interesting times, Raf. We'll see how it develops, but I don't think this is a major shock that they're looking to kind of move the club on at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, and Keith, it comes at a time when, as a couple of hours before that, we saw the Champions League draw, where they're going to be renewing acquaintances with the team that beat them in last season's Champions League final, Real Madrid. And then when we look at the rest of the draw, RB Leipzig against Manchester City, Club Brugge against Benfica, AC Milan against Tottenham, Eintracht Frankfurt against Napoli, Dortmund against Chelsea, Inter against Porto, and then another big one, PSG against Bayern Munich. We've a lot of big games to look forward to when the club season resumes after the World Cup.
Yeah, there's some cracking games in there. The Bayern PSG one is obviously a huge one I'm really looking forward to. And obviously one of the big ones will go. They can't both go through. So either Bayern or PSG are going to fall at the first hurdle. Liverpool and Real Madrid, one of them will go missing as well. So Manchester City must be licking their lips. It seems to be every year we come around and think, it's getting better. It's waning in their favour. You would expect them to get past RB Leipzig pretty easily. Liverpool, Real Madrid, as I say, one of the big ones are going out. It's a cracking game. It really is. And I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool went and won the first leg in Anfield and then they go to the Bernabeu with Benzema and Modric the two of them just seem to be evergreen. You know, they just seem to be getting better and better with age. And still absolutely fantastic to watch. He's sharp as attack Benzema. Anything comes into the box, he's outstanding. He's hold up play. He goes wandering as well. He has that. We're always raving about Harry Kane being able to drop into the midfield and get runners beyond them. He can do that as well with the two wingers, Vinicius and the other boy on the other wing. The pace is outstanding. So lots and lots of threats. Liverpool would be delighted that the tie is not being played until February, because there's still a lot of issues. I know they had a great win against Spurs yesterday, but there's still an awful lot of issues. And what Real Madrid have is they're a very, very stubborn team to break down, and they can hit you with pace on the counter-attack. And like I said, they only need one chance, and Benzema, they can easily win a game 1-0, or if they need to go, we see they throw the kitchen sink at teams. Teams tend to buckle as well. So a great game, but I think what will be coming out of this is that Manchester City will be licking their lips, because as I say, Bayern, PSG, Liverpool or Real Madrid will be going missing.
Yeah, and let's not forget also the Europa League playoff round draw that was made. And David, there was a fixture there that in a bygone era was a Champions League fixture, but probably just goes to show exactly where Barcelona and Manchester United are for very different reasons.
I know, kind of not ordinarily. Remember, was that famous semi-final in 2008 as well?
Yeah.
The Paul Scholes goal, obviously the Champions League final in 2009. When Messi and Samuel Eto'o scored as well. Remember Messi's great header in that game when he peeled off Rio Ferdinand. But it was one of them. I think you're probably looking at it was probably going to be Barcelona, considering the summer that was just gone when United were chasing Frankie de Jong, and he clearly didn't want to leave, and that never materialised. And United ended up then with Casemiro, or it would have probably been Ajax, given the fact that obviously Ten Hag has gone to United from there, and there's Anthony as well and Martinez. But it's one of them where I suppose if for United, and even maybe for Barcelona, they're in the competition they don't want to be in, but there is that maybe element of glamour to it that they are still the biggest clubs left in it, in terms of history and the name, rather than maybe actual standing at the moment. But I'd say for both sets of those fans, it's still very exciting, really will be, and there will be that element, I'd say, to, I wouldn't say needle maybe, but just because of everything that has gone on over the last little while as well, that'll be there too. But I think it's just going to be a really exciting game as well. And Lewandowski on the pitch, Ronaldo possibly on the pitch at the same time as well. You don't often get to see that too. So if you're going to be in the second tier competition and you have to get out and you want to get out of it and get back to the elite and the Champions League, these are other occasions, especially for Ten Hag and focused on United's side of it, that they have to come through, after the weekend where they've been doing so well for so many weeks, and then they have a bit of a reality check against Villa. This kind of test against Barcelona would be just another indication of maybe even where Ten Hag is as well as a manager with this United team,
Yeah, and you were keeping Anthony company at Tallaght Stadium yesterday, of course, as well. The Women's Cup final, Shelbourne beating Athlone 2-0 to seal the double. Now, in terms of reaction, let's listen to the Evoke.ie player of the match, Jess Stapleton, and also manager Noel King.
Well done, and a goal scorer as well. Can you tell me what you remember about the goal?
I don't know. I turned around and it was in the back of the net, so I just went off and celebrated.
Set you off brilliantly. Set up the game for you, really, didn't it?
Sorry?
It set up the game for you, really, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it calmed the nerves, but after our loan came out, we were in to go and we dealt with it well. And then when the other goal went in, I think we were settled.
Pearl Slattery for that one, of course. She's popped up so often on the big days like this.
Yeah, I'm delighted for her. Pearl is an incredible person and I'm just buzzing for her.
And from your own point of view, though, I mean, gosh, a double this season, and for Shelbourne Football Club, maybe a special double next week as well with the men.
Yeah, it's an incredible week for the club. All these fans are going to go out and support the men in the next couple of hours as well, so it shows the sort of fans that are in the club. It's an incredible club. And
the way that this showpiece has moved as well. A record crowd today of over 5,000 people. What was it like to play in that?
Incredible. As I said, the fans of Shelbourne make every game feel like a home game. And I think women's football is just going to keep growing and growing.
Always the double is the hardest one to get, and it's the sweetest, I think, 2 years on the trot, 2 titles and into Europe, winning a game in Europe. It's been an amazing season with these bunch of girls. They're really terrific. They are amateurs, but they behave like professionals, and they deserve everything they've got. They put in so much work.
Second half, were you a little bit concerned when Athlone came back into it?
Little bit concerned. Well, they had the breeze, they had nothing to lose, so they were going for broke, and fair play to them. It caused us a lot of trouble, but I think we defended really well. We're known as an attacking team, and we do try and play football, nice football, but I thought we showed they can defend as well, and I think full marks to them, so it's great.
Jess Stapleton, didn't know too much about it, but she's credited with the opening goal of the game, and she was player of the match as well. She had a terrific 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, we've some great young players, honestly. Jess has been exceptional through the year. She's going to be some player. Abby is the same thing, but I don't like saying that. You go back to the Pearl and Rachel. It's such a combination of old, young, and in the mix. You know, Jess Gargan is outstanding as well. I can't keep naming names because everybody, they're all brilliant. They fully deserve what they've got, and I'm just so pleased for them.
Well, you did turn to your experienced players at the end, I suppose, to steady the ship and sail it home.
Well, that was the whole thing. Poor Rachel, I said before the match, she didn't deserve to be out of the team, but the team had been doing so well. We got 3 wins, went up mattered to win the league, so you can't really bring her in. And when she did come in, she steadied the ship, as you said, and she deserved. What a player.
What an atmosphere here with the Shelbourne fans and these scenes. And Noel, you've been in the game for such a long time, in the women's game and the men's game. Isn't it great to see at a cup final day?
It's unbelievable. It's great to see the advances that are happening in the women's game. It's as though doesn't seem to be any end to it. I've played in League of Ireland matches with smaller crowds than this, that's for sure. But that's the way of the future, and we'll just embrace it and enjoy it. Although I'll say no.
Well, listen, enjoy it is right. It's been a terrific year for Shelbourne and for women's football in general. Well done.
Well, exactly. Thanks very much. Don't say well done to me. Say it to the players who are it's players' game.
All right, so that is Jess Stapleton and Noel King after Shelbourne's 2-0 win over Athlone Town in the final yesterday, which sealed the double, having won the league title a week earlier. And maybe just touching on the last point in terms of the attendance, Anthony. I mean, over 5,000 added, and then if you couple that with the sense of progress for the women's national team going to a World Cup for the first time, and Tala has sort of become the fortress and the home for it, it's a real sign of progress.
It is. Look, I mean, it's a tangible sign of progress when you have that many people there. And, you know, it was a good atmosphere and a nice crowd, over 5,000 record attendance, as was referenced there, for a women's cup final. So, you know, this is a bit of a moment now for the women's game generally in Ireland. You know, we'll see how the success of the national side tumbles down in terms of the domestic game, or if it does at all. You know, that's really, we will only know that in the next sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but there's an opportunity, that's for sure. You know, there is an opportunity. It was a good game yesterday. Shelbourne probably had a little bit more experience about them on the day, and to be fair, they got the rub of the green at certain points as well. But there's a lot of good players on show, and some of them were straight on the plane the next morning to go to Spain, to Vera Pauw's training camp, international training camp with the Republic of Ireland. So it is a good moment for the women's game in Ireland, but where's it going to lead? We don't know. Like, I think the next step in terms of the Women's National League is semi-professionalism, which is coming, and that's really important. You know, if you get to that stage, then obviously the standard comes up, and it opens up more opportunities for these players. We retain some of the better players for longer, because at the minute they're going to the Women's Super League or the Women's Championship in England much sooner, because they can make a living out of it, you know, which is not the case at the minute. So it is a moment, it is an opportunity. It's just going to take a bit of time for us to see if that chance is really seized and properly taken.
Yeah, and David, I mean, in terms of how the game played out, it ended up being decided by set pieces. We'll talk about some of the refereeing decisions a little bit later on, but as Anthony said, Shels' experience showed true, but at the same time, Athlone, there was a spell in the second half where they were really on top, and, you know, maybe the rub of the green in terms of refereeing decisions, and then, you know, if they'd taken one or two of those chances, who knows what would have happened. Yeah, like the big one I would say obviously would be the goal that was disallowed for offside, and Tommy Ewart kind of spoke quite passionately after the game, as you would probably imagine. Like, it was only about 10 minutes or so after Shels had pretty much lifted the cup as well, and he was trying to put a bit of a brave face on it by saying, you know, this is a club where, I'm not sure who it was, it might actually have been Anthony, kind of got him riled by asking him, was he expecting to maybe lose some players now? And he was like, well, why would they go anywhere? This is a club going to go places, and we can take over this league in the next couple of years.
But you can understand why he would have been pretty. You can understand why he was so annoyed with the offside goal, because it was clearly onside. The only thing I can think of is that there is an at-loan player, I can't remember who it was, in the linesman's eye line, who was well offside, and maybe he was thinking, well, she was in line with her at the time. That's the only kind of logical explanation you may be able to give. But I'll be honest, and like, even from saying it, other than that moment, and I know you were kind of complaining about the free kick that was initially given for the first goal, you're going to get those kind of soft ones the odd time, you know what I mean? I don't think you can be really arguing about that being given as a free kick. You should really be questioning your goalkeeper for both goals. You can't get away from it. It was atrocious how that was, really. And like, what you would have to say would be, other than that offside goal that should have been given, that would have maybe changed the dynamic totally, you would have imagined, because Athlone were doing well. But other than that, Athlone really just huffed and puffed. There was a couple of long range efforts. I thought Shelbourne, despite maybe backs against the wall, but I thought it was probably comfortable-ish. It wasn't as if they were getting carved open left, right and centre. Although I think there was an opportunity for Madison Gibson as well, maybe with 10 minutes to go with the ball.
She put one over when it was played back to her. And then,
when it was played back to her, like that was probably the best move of the match from an Athlone perspective, where they actually got in around the back and were able to create something. Other than that, I thought Shelbourne were pretty comfortable. Obviously, Jess Stapleton got the goal, and she got player of the match as well. She was very good. But I thought, even just beside her in midfield, Alex Kavanagh, I thought was very good, just in terms of the amount of interceptions she made and breaking up counters in the Athlone half before they were even getting into the Shelbourne half. I thought that was very impressive, just how well she read the game, and was I think it counted about four or five moments where she did that, just by reading passes and stepping in a couple of yards and doing that. And obviously it was her free kick as well that led to the first goal. So I thought Shelbourne were deserved winners. Deserved, but maybe for Athlone's point of view, you can tell that definitely a coming team, considering where they were only a couple of years ago and where they finished the season before last, and then coming runners up and getting to a cup final. So I'm looking forward to Tommy Hewitt and Noel King resuming hostilities, or maybe not hostilities, but that rivalry for next season.
Yeah, let's listen to Tommy Hewitt, the Athlone manager. So he's speaking to Tony O'Donoghue afterwards. The first part of this, he's talking about the disallowed goal for offside, but then he also touches on the future for Athlone if they keep this team together.
We don't have VAR and lines here, but even if we were to have that, it was very, very close.
Well, I just seen it there, Tony, just before I spoke to you. It's not even close in my eyes. It's a goal. But look, the referees give it. But it's beyond my control.
What is within your control is how you've brought this Athlone team on in such a short space of time, really. You finished second in the league, runners up in the cup. Where can you go with this squad?
Look, first of all, this group, I'm immensely proud of where they have come to. The sky's the limit for this group. Once we keep them together and add one or two more, you will see a dominant force in the next 5 or 6 years with that group, Tony.
All right, that's Athlone Town manager Tommy Hewitt speaking to Tony O'Donoghue afterwards. Just on that second point, Anthony, I mean, this season for Athlone has been a breakthrough one, to get to a cup final, also to finish only 2 points off winning the league title. I mean, Shelbourne pipped them for that. And I mean, where Athlone have come from, being down in the kind of the middle of the pack, it has been a breakthrough. But do they have the tools in place really to push on and kind of maintain this momentum and stay within that top four?
I think they do, to be fair. Like, I asked Tommy Hewitt about, as David said there, like, Stasman, is there a danger of other clubs circling for their players? But that is part of the game. And
you were on the wind up. You were on the wind up.
Yeah. But like, they have some very good young players, and you're gonna be. There has been talk of, say, the likes of Emily Corbett is being looked at by maybe some of the more established clubs in the women's national leagues, and maybe even in England as well. So it is a challenge. That's just what happens. But before the match, he had spoken about there was a need for a club in the Midlands. And they're attracting players from around that area, other counties around that player, good players. They also have a link up with Athlone IT. So there's a number of the players who are studying and living on that campus. So these are things that really help them. We have a very, very good underage system as well, Raf. And if you keep an eye on the Ireland underage teams, they're well represented in those teams. Noel King spoke afterwards about some of his players. He'd expect more of the Shels players to get knocking on the door for Ireland call-ups. Athlone are in the same boat. I'm actually surprised that one or two of them weren't on the plane on Monday morning to go to Spain with Vera Pauw. So they are in a good spot then. And, you know, if they can keep a hold of that team, as David mentioned there, they're a coming team and they are a good side. They're a good side. You know, I think yesterday, I actually thought they played better football yesterday throughout the match, the whole match. But we're undone by two soft goals. And when you look at Shels, they'd only conceded 17 goals in the league all season. They brought on Rachel Graham. She's one of our most experienced players. And Heather O'Reilly, who won a Women's World Cup. Like, that's who they brought on to see the game out. So it's very difficult once you go behind against a team like that. But loads of pluses and positives for them. And if they keep the group together, they'll be back. No doubt, yeah.
Yeah, and on that flight to Marbella for this training camp of Vera Pauw's Ireland, of course, Jess Stapleton will be among them, and they have the friendly against Morocco coming up next Monday. So, Anthony, just on they're in that fortunate position now that they can dream about going to the World Cup because it's done and dusted. So this is all part of the stepping stones towards that.
Yeah, well, they don't have many chances either. I think they've only got 3 camps, 3 international camps. So these are really important camps. Morocco are at the World Cup. They were one of the pot 4 teams. I think they're ranked 78th in the world or something like that. So they're not going to be the strongest test for Ireland. But given that Ireland have Nigeria in their group, maybe there's similarities there in the style of play. That's what Vera Pauw is looking at there. It's an important match for players to put their hands up because it's only a 23-player squad, I think. It's going to be hard to get into that squad. So every single camp, every training camp, every match really matters for them players. They're not going to get that many opportunities to put their hand up. And on top of that, Vera Pauw is getting emails from players who are eligible to play for Ireland, who have not previously been involved. Suddenly, she's getting emails and calls, oh, look, I can actually play. So you wouldn't know what could come of that. She did mention that after the draw. If there's a very high-class operator playing in America or in England or somewhere else, and that she thinks, well, if they help us, we'll bring them in. So it's hard. It's going to be a hard squad to get into. Big week for those players. As I said, not going to get loads of chances to get together. So every meetup counts. And that game's next Monday, isn't it? So it'll be worth a watch to see who gets a shot and how they all do.
Yeah, and from one cup final to another, so the men's FAI Cup final this Sunday, coming live on the RT2 and RTÉ Player Sunday, 2:15 p.m. Derry City against Shelbourne. And Keith, even thinking back to last season's final between Pats and Bows, I mean, the raucous atmosphere in the Aviva Stadium, it does, unlike in other countries, it still is like our massive showpiece.
Yeah, it is. Everybody, like I've been lucky enough to play in the FAI Cup at various rounds, and it just gets everybody's attention because it can be anybody that wins it. It's usually one of the big boys, if we're honest, but everybody gets a shot at it, and that's why we want it. It's like the FA Cup in England, like the equivalent. It just has this bit of nostalgia around it. People seem to enjoy it. People seem to like it, and yeah, I think it's going to be a really good showpiece. I'm going to the game. I'll be there, Derry against Shels, and for all the class that Derry have, Derry, the two McElhenney brothers, Michael Duffy as well, some classy operators, but Shelbourne are really, really stubborn. And I know they got beat by St. Pat's yesterday 4-0. I was at that game also, but that's not the Shels that will turn up against Derry. Damien Duff will crack the whip during the week. He'll get them organised. That 3 centre-halves with the 2 wing-backs, I always say it as a player, I've played against that system. It's horrible. It really is horrible. So when Derry get a sniff of being able to play through the towards, they have to do it quickly, and the passing has to be accurate and it has to be quick, or Shelbourne will just retreat back into a unit and he will not be able to break them down. So, but the one thing is, with Jack Moyle and Sean Boyd, they both started the game last night, but both got taken off because Damien obviously doesn't want them getting a yellow card, and a bit of needle started creeping into the game last night. But like I said, I think Shels will go there and they will throw a few punches, although they will be defensively very, very sound. They will try and win the game, which is, something to be admired, really, because they are going up against a really strong outfit in Derry. I think we could see extra time and penalties in this.
Yeah, it seems to happen a lot in this in these finals.
It's always extra time.
Yeah, but David, I suppose as Keith said there, I mean, there's a slight novelty factor with this final between a Derry City and a Shelbourne who haven't won it for a long time. So how do you think it feeds into the occasion and the atmosphere?
I suppose it can be two ways where, like, will there be an extra nervousness around it, or will there just be a case that because both clubs haven't won it for a while? And although, in fairness, both have been in finals in the Aviva in recent years as well, and Derry have won it as well under, obviously, Rudy Higgins, not Rudy Higgins, sorry, oh my God, Declan Devine, excuse me, when they beat St. Pat's. So, I don't know, I'm kind of expecting it to be one of those where for Derry City, you're kind of thinking they have to go, not that there's an extra pressure, because like there's pressure on both teams in a cup final, but we're kind of expecting Derry to be the ones now to go and put it up to Rovers in the next couple of years. So, will it be viewed that this is their chance to win a bit of silverware for a squad that's building to act as a catalyst? That's the kind of cliche that's always given about teams when they're coming through to try and challenge. And when you see the finance that's behind them now as well, that's what Rudy Higgins is kind of expected to do. And then for Shelbourne, kind of like what Keith was saying earlier about, like, that wasn't the Shelbourne that turned up against Pats, and what Damien Duff, how he, you speak to any of their players and the level of intensity that he's brought to train, and even where just listening to players and talking to players, stuff where like sloppiness isn't tolerated in training, where like lads who've been signed there and maybe at previous clubs, if you had like a brutal training session, it was almost forgiven. It wasn't really a big thing, whereas they've tried to maintain standards so high and it's relentless. That's what they're talking about. And excuse me, when you listen to what you talk to players and you listen to them on and off the record about it, and it's like, the players who thrive off it are the ones who are happy. The ones who aren't are the ones who you probably won't be seeing too much of, because they just can't deal with that level of what's expected of them from, say, Duff and Joey O'Brien, and obviously Alan Quinn in there too. So I'm kind of, I think what he said, it's one of those where it always seems to go to extra time. It always seems to maybe end up going to penalties. But I can see it being a bit of a war of attrition. I really can. And not so much only because, like, that's what Shelbourne will turn it into. Like, you see in some of the games this year, they have been tight. I don't think, like, I remember seeing them towards the start of the season, maybe a couple of months in at Talca Park, and Brandon Kavanagh scored a lovely goal for Derry to win at Talca Park, but there was nothing between the teams that evening, and even they played with her recently as well, and it was the same. It was a draw. So I'm hoping for the game, but it's hope more than expect. I'm hoping for a really, really good game, but it's more hope than expectation. But to be honest, I do expect it to be one where it's going to have to be ground out, you know.
Yeah, and Keith, how much do you read into Derry City's dip in form since the league got away from them? I mean, you're looking at their recent run of games. I mean, there was the defeat to Shamrock Rovers. They lost to Dundalk there yesterday as well. And then also the blow of Sadhu Diallo, who is, I have to add, no relation to me either, being suspended after getting sent off against the Lily Whites there yesterday. But how much do you read into both of those factors, the form and then also what has been a fairly impressive player in recent weeks actually being absent for it?
Yeah, I do. To go to the Diallo one, you know, in hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, Rory be thinking I shouldn't have played him. I should have just saved him for the cup. He would have thought he could trust him. He gets a straight red. He misses the cup final. Very, very silly. But in the heat of the moment, players do these things. You can't play a game thinking about the game to come. It's just not the way you're wired. You know, I've done things like this before myself. I remember getting a red card against West Ham when I trampled on somebody. They went around the goalkeeper. They're 2 yards out, about to tap it into the back of the net in the 96th minute. And I stood on his Achilles to make sure he didn't score the goal. And I got a straight red and I missed the next 3 championship games. In hindsight, I shouldn't have done it. I should have played the long game. But in the heat of the moment, you don't think of these things. So I do have a little bit of sympathy for Diallo. However, I do think Derry will be weakened by it, so Shelbourne will be rubbing their hands together. But do I read into the dip in form? Not so ever. Since they've come out of the chase for the league, I think it's the most natural thing in the world. You know, even when you look at, obviously the World Cup is happening soon, and you see players in the Premier League are coming off the boil because they know the World Cup is there. They're afraid to go thundering into tackles because they might get injured. They're not chasing those balls into the channels, the 70-30 balls that they're just not doing it anymore because they don't want to put the extra strain on the hamstring. Everything it's sort of in a comfort zone now, and think that's what Derry are. We're seeing that's what Shelbourne were definitely in a comfort zone last night. So I think that both sort of been wrapped up in cotton wool, but being thrown out on the pitch, if that makes any sense. So I expect them both to be geared enough for Sunday, and I expect it to be a really good game. But I really don't. We look back 6, maybe 7 weeks ago. The title race was over. It was dead and dusted, and Derry done well to revive it and get us all a little bit back interested. And then obviously, Rovers just had enough to get it easily done enough. But I think Derry have been really good. Just too many draws, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the final pans out.
Yeah, sympathy for Diallo. That sounds like a tagline. If I'm running for office or something, I might use it. But just on the tactical battle, because obviously Derry play sort of this 4-2-3-1, and then Shelbourne have really established this back three, Keith. Where are the spaces on the pitch? What are the key matchups in terms of either side getting on top?
Well, I think the key battle will be the wing backs for Shelbourne. If it'll be John Ross Wilson, and maybe I'm not sure who'll play left wing back for Shelbourne, but it'll all be about how adventurous Shelbourne want to be. If they want to play a flat back five, they're going to invite an awful lot of pressure, and with the flat back five, they give up an awful lot of spaces on the wing, so you can get the ball out wide and cross it really early. A little bit like the De Bruyne position. He'll always in that position, and he's trying to get it behind the back five for Haaland. You leave yourself open to that if you're going to play a flat back five. If the two wing backs come up the pitch a little like 10, 15 yards maybe, to maybe come into midfield to be a little bit more attacking, that's when the spaces come down the side of the three centre halves. And you just keep chipping balls in there. You keep getting them running towards their own goal, and eventually they'll stop running forward because they'll just get a pain. I'm always running back. I'll start back now from now on, and that's when it will appear again. Just keep appearing. So for me, I think Shelbourne, they'll feel their way into the game. They will start with a flat back five. I don't think they'll be too adventurous. I think they'll just try and nullify Derry. And it could even come down to a game of set pieces. This could be over-analysed tactically, but, we've seen with the women's final, these things can often come down to just set pieces. And Shelbourne do generally defend set pieces well. We've seen Daniel Lafferty's header against Shamrock Rovers to get them into the final as well. So, I think it would be a really, really close game. There's an awful lot of talent on the pitch, and it could come down to, something like a set piece.
Yeah, and
and because of the big pitch as well. That's another thing. Like the fact that it's such a big pitch, like even with Shels up front, like if Jack Moynihan, you would assume, was going to be up there in and around Sean Boyd. If Shels can't keep hold of the ball and it keeps on coming back, it's just going to be a long day for them. It really will, because they're not going to be able to they're going to have to make sure things stick up there too. And that's even the fact that it's something that's kind of been touched on by a few of the players, and even just from speaking to them over the last little while, the fact that because it is a big pitch, and what Keith was saying there about feeling the way into the game, I'd be very surprised if they're going to be leaving themselves exposed early on. It will be very much a cage, like any cup final, big cage at the start. But the fact as well that there's been some games I've been at where maybe stuff hasn't maybe stuck as well as it should have up top, and the ball can get back. I don't think Shels can afford that, so they'll need a big game for Sean Boyd as well, I would say.
Yeah, and Anthony, just I suppose a final point before we touch on the First Division playoff. We've talked a lot about what silverware would mean for Derry City on the trajectory they're on with the finances that they have. They're going to be pushing on regardless. For Shelbourne, obviously, if they were to win the cup, they qualify for Europe, and that will be quite lucrative in and of itself. And the other Dublin clubs behind Shamrock Rovers, Bows and St. Pat's would then be kind of reduced to just playing league matches. So how do you think it affects the balance of power, I suppose, within that quartet of Dublin clubs, if Shels were to go on and win it and also get a European place that might not have been expected at the start of the season?
I think it's very, very hard to say how it would affect any balance of power, because Shels could get into Europe and they could go in the first round. It'd be a big jump for them. It'd be very difficult for them. But for them, it would be a massive thing for Shelbourne as a club. From where they've come from in the last couple of years. Damien Duff, after the semi-final, said it was the biggest achievement of his career to get to a cup final. I mean, you think of the career that he's had. Now, maybe he's caught up on the emotion and everything, but he really, this means a lot to him. They also have, there's nice unity between the men's and women's teams. They could become the first club since Cork to win both cups, the men's and women's cups in the same year. Cork did it in 2017. And they're going to have brilliant support. So it's always a great day. It's got the makings of, you can actually see the crowd for this cup final. It's just going to be red flares, red smoke everywhere. Two clubs that are, it's been a while for either of them to win this competition. particularly Shelbourne. And I'm really looking forward to it. As the lad said there, it is difficult to know how the game's going to play out. Sometimes they can get bogged down. Hopefully we get a good one and it's nice and open, and it's not a 0-0 that goes all the way to penalties. But look, once this sort of occasion, it's a special occasion for players who don't get to taste something like this very often in their whole careers. If they're lucky, they'll get a day like this. And I think, once the day comes around and it gets closer to it, that kind of hits everybody as well. But what would be interesting is that Derry have players who've done it, the ex-Dundalk lads, and that they've done it. They know what this is all about. Shelbourne have Damien Duff in their dressing room. So, that'll be interesting when it comes down to who handles the occasion the best. But it's a big day for them, and it would be a massive deal for whoever wins it. But in terms of will this actually signify a swing of power for Shelbourne, and they go on to be like someone that challenges Shamrock Rovers over the next 4 or 5 years, like off the back of winning the cup? I wouldn't really see that, to be honest with you, Raf.
Yeah, and what it definitely is a massive deal is the first division playoff. We're going to be seeing, that was, of course, Waterford. Waterford beating Galway United 3-0 last Friday, and then they're going to be playing UCD in the promotion relegation playoff this Friday. And Keith, just looking at this game between Waterford and Galway at Markets Field, while the result reads 3-0, it didn't necessarily feel like a 3-0 in terms of the balance of play, and also a couple of the goals were definitely self-inflicted from a Galway point of view.
Yeah, it was. I was really disappointed in Galway, if I'm honest. There's certain, when you come into these games as you put yourself into a Galway player's, vein of thinking. Waterford have an awful lot of attacking ability on the pitch. We all know how good they are with Quintana, Patterson. They can rip you apart really, really easily. But I felt like Waterford didn't have to work hard. They were really gifted the goals, Raft, and that's not something John Caulfield would be happy with. And even going forward, I didn't feel like they put some balls into the box. Some of them had quality on them. Some of them are just aimless and hopeful. But Waterford dealt with it, and I think Waterford will be looking at it thinking, we didn't reach anywhere near the heights we could have gone forward. We didn't defend particularly well, although we were resilient. We didn't have to overextend ourselves. So yeah, Waterford didn't have to play well, won the game at a canter. And I have to be honest, I tipped UCD to get into the playoff battle. I think Waterford will beat them. I really do. And not to the point that I think it'd be a massive upset if UCD beat Waterford. I would tip Waterford on the attacking balance. But UCD just seemed to have that resilience, and there's been times to go up to Ballybuffet and win that game up there, that was outstanding. So to go across the Inchicore to beat Waterford, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. But I just think Waterford are a bit too slick up front. I think they're really, really good, and some of the older heads in the Waterford dressing room is really good. Eddie Nolan is still there, Alex Baptiste. These are players that have been around in England as well, that just know the league, know how to play football. So these types of occasions won't faze them, and they'll be filtering that down to the young lads. So I expect Waterford to win the game, but by no means easily.
Yeah, so UCD and Waterford to come this Friday, and the winner of that will be playing Premier Division football in 2023. David, one other bit of news in the First Division actually is Ian Ryan stepping away from Wexford, and the club put out a statement. The club had been well advanced in its plans to put together a squad made up of the core of last season with a number of new additions so that we could mount a serious challenge for promotion in 2023. Despite this setback, this remains the plan and the process to appoint a new manager with the ambition and potential to deliver this, and this will begin straight away. It's a blow for Wexford, but he has left them in a great place.
Yeah, it's a blow, but it's probably one that they were expecting to happen a couple of weeks ago, because I think he was pretty much going to be getting the Bowes job, and then between one thing or another and how that process was handled, it seemed as if maybe he was going to pull out of it as well. I think that was pretty much a done deal by all accounts. So it's an interesting one, because you wonder, he's left them in a good place by maybe having the core of a squad there, and maybe you would think a manager coming in, well, how did the club approach that? Do they say, well, do you know what? They say to a manager, well, this is the squad you're going to be pretty much having, go and deal with it. Or do they say if they settle on a certain candidate, will they say, well, do you know what? You can already rip things up a little bit and change it. So they kind of have to, the fact that they've kind of said that they're going to be sticking with the squad kind of thing, you have to find a manager and who's happy with that. So listen, it's a small industry in Ireland in terms of jobs. I don't think it'll be a struggle to find someone who wants to get in and have a crack at the job. So, and then it's just going to be interesting as well where Ryan will end up, because he's clearly well thought of. So you would think he would have something sorted, you know.
Yeah, we'll see how that situation pans out, both for the club and also for Ian Ryan himself. But we did task both of you with picking your LOI Team of the Year and Player of the Year. We might start on Player of the Year, Keith, for the Premier Division. Who's your choice?
Well, I tried to look past the obvious, but I couldn't look past Rory Gaffney, if I'm honest. He's been outstanding. 10 goals, 8 assists, and even in Europe, I know the performances were largely okay in Europe, but him in particular, at certain times he was the Lone Ranger. Balls were getting pumped up to him. He was doing some selfless running. And when you think of Rory Gaffney, his walk rate, his hold-up play, and with 10 goals is a great return, but to get 8 assists as well just tells you what type of striker he is. He's not one of these that won't be in the game for 80 minutes, but then he'll hit the back of the net, and that's all you get from him. You get walk rate, you get he's the whole package, and he doesn't give, even if he doesn't score, he can still have a good game, and that's a great sign of a centre forward. And I think he's been excellent. I've really enjoyed watching him play. And he has that little bit of class. I use that word walk rate, but that's by no means his best attribute. He's technically a very efficient footballer as well.
Yeah, and David, there are obviously Rory Gaffney is a very, very strong candidate for it. There's the likes of Cameron Dummigan as well, Alan Mannis, Joe Redman, Aidan Keena. There's some players who've had brilliant seasons over the campaign. Are you going with a different choice, or is Rory Gaffney also the standout for you?
No, I'd like to say great minds think alike, but I'll just say no. I have to agree with Keith. I'll be honest. I've been totally surprised by the manner of how Rory Gaffney has developed, even at this stage of his career, in terms of, I remember when he was at Salford City a few years ago, going over to visit him in a coffee shop in Altrincham, just outside Manchester. And I remember talking to him, and I wouldn't say he seemed lost, but he was talking about, basically after training, he basically just spent his day trying to do stuff to fill his day, and killing the day was a phrase he used. It just looked as if he was getting through and plodding along, really, and that kind of, that grind of maybe the lower league football in England, where I just thought, I came away from that thinking this is a smashing fella, but it just seemed as if it was like he'd been over there a couple of years at that point, a good few years after he'd been at Limerick and left the league, and it just felt as if he was kind of getting worn down by it. And he's been totally revitalised, I think, over the last couple of years since coming back to Rovers. And like what Keith says, he just seems to have that mix of graft. He's that fella you can trust up front. I mentioned earlier with the cup final and say Sean Boyd. Sean Boyd should be looking at Rory Gaffney and saying these are the elements of how we are to play that position and lead the line, because he just does so well. And even little things and I don't know, it's just because maybe I missed covering him is the start of his career when he would have broken through a little bit, but how he runs with the ball and his ability, he has this great ability to be able to run with it and just stop and slow down and pick a pass, and not sometimes you see lads running with the ball and they lose their focus, but I just think he really has been exceptional this season. And not that he had a dip, I think there was a period maybe a couple of months ago where he was almost if he was giving himself a bit of a rest in some games because Rovers were so far ahead in the league, but he got his goal in Europe, which was great for him, a great finish at the back post. But yeah, no, for an all-round impact in that position and how he's done it, I just don't think you can look past him, to be honest.
Yeah, and now for the Team of the Year, Keith, just your goalkeeper and your back four, and maybe a reason for each of your choices.
When I got the email saying Team of the Year, I thought you actually meant Team of the Year. So I put Shelbourne.
So Luke Bourne centre back, okay. I think who else there?
Well, let's work our way through it anyway. I think Alan Mannis probably might be the obvious choice, but is there anybody else maybe in goal who you feel has been better?
No, I would go with Mannis. I wouldn't begrudge Mannis. I think he has been excellent, but I'm not just going to keep throwing Shelbourne players in, but Brendan Clark has really impressed me. I know time catches up with everybody, but he's been excellent. Some of the saves he's pulled off at times have been really, really good. His distribution from the back has been excellent. So a shout out to Brendan Clark, but no, I would go with McManus, yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of right backs during the season, or full backs, right and left, who's impressed you most?
You'll throw Dummigan. I was going to go Dummigan. I'm not just saying. Also, like, I know obviously, like, Keith will just go with Shels because they're his local team as well. Like, you know what I mean? Let's be honest. But like, I was going to go for the 3 at the back and use wing backs just because I think it has been a very productive system for a lot of teams this season. But I had Dummigan. I'd have Dummigan as my right wing back, just also because partly in my head I'm thinking if this was a team. Remember, there was that brief kind of plan where the FAI wanted to have a Premier League club come over and play League of Ireland 11. So I kind of was thinking, well, what would be the team that I would want to play in that? And I would say Dummigan as a right wing back because you could play him anywhere across. You could play him on the left, you could play him midfield if you needed. So I'd have Dummigan right wing back, and then I'd throw in Andy Lyons as my left wing back.
Yeah, and in terms of if we're going with this formation, then the centre back trio, I would imagine Joe Redmond's going to be in there, Keith.
Yeah, well, that I have Redmond down. He's the one I've looked at him very, very closely this season. He's been excellent, and one of the things when you start finding your feet in the league, and the Irish league is a very, very physical league. He's fine with it. He's absolutely fine. He actually enjoys the physical battle. You see him, smiling when the physical battle is happening. Very, very good last night as well against Shels. Dealt with 2 very classy operators, and I seen him play for the 21s as well. The 2 games against Israel. Looked really good, and if he keeps going from strength to strength like that, he could find himself over the water really, really easily. St. Pat's fans won't want to hear that, but he's shown all the right signs, and he seems to have all the tools at his disposal. There's a couple of things that need to be polished, but really, really enjoying what I'm seeing from Joe Redmond.
Yeah, and for, let's say, the 2 centre backs that would be flanking him, who would be the standout candidates?
I went on the right side. I went for Connolly, and on the left side, just because he plays all the time and just to get that balance, I went for Lee Grace. So I just think, like, that whole back three, and also in my team I had Redmond as the kind of the centre of it, just because I just think for someone who's come back from England, could have easily took him a while to get his head around playing back in the League of Ireland. Sometimes players at that age, as you come back in from Birmingham, maybe he could come back in the league and he could struggle, but he's just gone from strength to strength as the league has gone on, got made captain, got into the 21s, and then Connolly between playing for obviously for Dundalk and then going to Derry, I just think he's been really, really good. Kind of at the opposite end, it's kind of the perfect balance in terms of age. You've got a kind of a more experienced operator like Connolly, Redmond, a bit younger, who could learn, and then Lee Grace, who, despite the fact that he's not left-footed, I think he's just always a 7 out of 10. Sometimes you can't. I don't think he's maybe spectacular at a lot of things, but I just think he's just always a 7 out of 10, solid. You can trust him, and he knows that position inside out. So I just think that would be the defence I would go for.
Yeah. Any other additions to that, Keith?
No, I'd back that up. Yeah, I'd be happy with. I'm trying to fill this all in as we're going, by the way, but I'm happy enough.
Yeah, and David, in terms of your midfield, then, if we're going with that formation,
I've gone for 2. I wouldn't say sitters, although Gary O'Neill would be one of who you would expect maybe sit, and then also Adam O'Reilly in beside him. And I kind of thinking as my 2 for them, and then Will Patching maybe in front too. I'd let him be a bit of a cheater. He wouldn't have to do so many defensive responsibilities, because I just think O'Neill just covers so much ground by being smart and reading the game. And then Adam O'Reilly is just absolute. I've seen him play. He's like a little Tasmanian devil the way he gets around the pitch. You know what I mean? But maybe like what Keith was saying, maybe about Joe Redmond, about sometimes he might stuff that can be polished. I think there will be that element with him, but I just think he just brings so much energy, and those two will complement each other. And as the season has gone on, I just think he's been very impressive.
Yeah, and your midfield as well, Keith, in terms of the candidates that you would feel are deserving of a place in a team of the year.
Yeah, well, I really enjoy Michael Duffy at Derry. I know he's been injured an awful lot, but he doesn't deserve to get in it because he hasn't been in it, but for long enough in the season. But his performances when he has been in has been outstanding. And Adam O'Reilly at Pats has been excellent. And the Tasmanian Devil, that's exactly what he is. But you need in games where you need to win the battle, you need to win second balls, you need people just buzzing around. That's exactly what Adam O'Reilly is. And you've seen when he gets the last minute goal against Dundalk, he's in his own 18-yard box defending in the 90-odd minute, and he still has the energy to get up to the other 18-yard box and put it in the back of the net. And sometimes you need players that just do selfless running, that, it's not all about the glory, it's just a selfless running. He gets his reward on that occasion, but there's been many, many times where he just does selfless running and selfless tackling. And he's one of them players that you don't really miss him until he's out of a team. And I would agree with Adam O'Reilly, definitely, yeah, get him in there.
Yeah, and David, further forward, obviously Rory Gaffney, given he's the choice, the unanimous choice for Player of the Year, he's definitely in there. But who else would be flanking him up there?
Yeah, so see, it's a strange one because with Gaffney, sometimes you think if a player is so good playing by himself, if he has a partner, would that maybe be to the detriment of him, because you know what I mean, they might go into the same spaces and all the rest of it. And so, but you can't ignore Keane because top scorer. I know he scored a few penalties that are in there, but I just think he's kind of done really well for Sligo, and maybe it's the one thing that Gaffney hasn't got, even though I think this is his career highest in terms of, I think he scored 15 or 16 goals in all competitions, which is the highest he's ever had. I just think maybe that's the one thing in that fox in the box type player that maybe he might not quite be, and you can see him having that partnership with Keane. So yeah, I'd go for Keane up there with him. So that would be mine anyway. It's kind of like I'm kind of looking at it here. You know, I don't like to get bogged down by formations. I like things to be fluid. You know, it's the modern game, isn't it? So isn't it, where like people are going all over the show. So, but I suppose it's kind of like a 3-4-1-2 type. You know?
3-4-1-2. Okay, fair enough. And
that makes sense. That adds up, doesn't it? Does that add up?
Yes, that does make sense. And Keith, outside of Gaffney, is it Aidan Keena, or is there any other forwards that have caught your eye over the season?
Well, Jack Boylan has been good at Shelbourne. Sean Boyd's been really good at Shelbourne. I've enjoyed Keane. He's been really good, and you can't take away from him when the stats behind Keane has been really good. And to be that efficient in front of goal when Sligo don't make a whole host of opportunities every game, they are getting better. They're improving. I think they'll be stronger again next season under Johnny Russell. But he has to be efficient because he doesn't get that many chances. And for such a young lad, he's got a cool head on his shoulders. And to get Keane up there with Gaffney, I think Gaffney has work rate. Keane has a bit of class, as does Gaffney. I wouldn't take that away from Gaffney. Does has class, but if Keane could up his work rate to Gaffney's, I think you have a team there that scores an awful lot of goals and just causes problems.
Yeah, and before we go, Keith, obviously Arsenal's great form is going to be keeping you happy, especially if they can stay top ahead of the start of the World Cup when the break happens. But how impressed were you with the way they dealt with that challenge? Because Chelsea is a team over the years, maybe not in the last couple of seasons, but prior to that was always an away trip that was difficult for Arsenal. They always seem to have their number, but the way they managed that game was very impressive.
Yeah, like you said, Raf, it really is. When I watched the game before they started off to the women's final, and when Jesus, the ball came in and Jesus missed the head, I think Martinelli crossed, and I thought Wendy missed that chance. I thought there's going to be a sting here. Chelsea will come back and haunt them, but they never let Chelsea grow into the game. It was, I wouldn't say total dominance because Chelsea huffed and puffed, but largely Arsenal were absolutely excellent. And going forward, it's so hard not to like them with Saka and Martinelli. Odegaard looks outstanding. Jesus, we talk about Gaffney's work rate, Jesus' work rate for the Brazilian international with the amount of talent he has. Them talent and work rate don't usually add up, but with Jesus, it does. And they've been absolutely excellent. And even the Swiss centre midfielder Xhaka in the middle, he's a different player. You know, I was calling for him to go out. I wanted Yuri Tielemans at Leicester to come in and change him, but I wouldn't take Tielemans now. Xhaka has been absolutely outstanding, and I know Zinchenko only came in. He played, didn't do great, but to have Zinchenko lurking in the background as well is going to come in. He can play left back. He can play as one of the holding three. Thomas Partey's been excellent, and even some of the decisions that I wasn't sure about when he moved Ben White out to right back. I thought, that's not for me. But he's been outstanding. He's been really, really good. He's matching people for pace. He's been aggressive and he's pressing them. It's all starting to add up, Raf. They're starting to look the real deal. I'm starting to believe. I'm not totally on board. And that's largely down to how good Manchester City are, I have to say. And I thought Arsenal would struggle to get Champions League. I'm bang on board with them getting Champions League this season. If they can somehow keep the course and finish second, I think that'll be an outstanding season for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Jack had blotted his copybook with was straight after the game then when he decided after all these years in England he didn't realise you're not allowed to swear on TV, but there you go. I'm not going to repeat the word he said. But
because saying, Raf, do you know what? what I really enjoy about that Arsenal performance, and it was just such a small thing, but I just think it shows the difference, I think, with Xhaka. I remember in the first half, Xhaka got fouled by Cucurella, and it was a clear foul, and like I think the bench were going mad for it or whatever, and nothing was given. He was basically, the ref just waved away, and like 2 seconds later, like Xhaka just comes in and like lays one on Cucurella and gets a yellow card. And I like, not that it was petulant, but it was like he just had that bit of anger in him, a bit of bite, like that you always associate Arsenal where something that would happen previously, and they shrug their shoulders a little bit and they just get on, and you just felt that could be a moment where Chelsea would have maybe just kicked on in the game. But like what Keith was saying, like Arsenal just stayed on them totally and never let them get in, and that's what's changed with this Arsenal team under RTÉ. And you could have got a glimpse of it with that documentary, the Amazon one, where you see how he operates, and like it just shows you, like he just kind of doing now. You remember when he first came in as Arsenal manager, and like you'd see all the stuff on social media, and he'd be getting slagged because there was poor results and all the rest of it, and like it's clear that like when that board stood behind them, and obviously Edu stood behind them and stuff, and just shows you when you have that backing and the trust that it can come together. And like I just think he's doing a really, really impressive job. And like he was linked, was he linked with Barcelona there recently as well, because maybe things aren't going great for Xavi, but I just think really it does strike me. It reminds me a little bit of the Leicester season when people said, no, he can't, Leicester will fall away, he can't do it. And each test and each time they kept on going. And remember that game when Leicester went to City and won, I think it was like 3-0, I think it was, and remember Martinez scored and few, and everyone like, right, did a real deal. And maybe that Chelsea one's maybe still a bit early, but I don't think you can question now that this Arsenal team and the manager are the real deal. It's just whether that maybe as a group maybe have that experience and maybe the strength and depth can match City, because the season goes on, especially after the World Cup, that could be the only thing that could be to their detriment.
Yeah, there's Carabao Cup games midweek, obviously, and then the final round of matches. And then 1 week later, on Sunday, the 20th, then the World Cup itself kicks off. So I was at the RTÉ coverage launch last week. Now, we're going to have all the games live on RT2, RTÉ Player, and some of them also on the RTÉ News channel. Shay Given will be among the panelists across the tournament. And one of the things he talked to me about after and during the launch was just how this glut of games and the timing of the World Cup, what impact it's going to have on the quality of the football.
From memory's not good, but I think naturally, because major tournaments, there was always that break. There was always like a pre-tournament camp. There was always, friendlies put in there, a real preparation for a major finals. And that's the strange thing about this World Cup. There's no, straight from the Premier League or whatever league you're playing in, and you're going, a week later you're playing in the first game. That's a tough thing for the players, and I suppose managers as well. Normally they'd have at least one game. Maybe a couple of nations have got a game, but it's crammed in. There's not much preparation time. But Anya made a good point on stage there about a lot of the players will be in peak fitness. Sometimes the tournaments, World Cups are at the end of a long, hard, grueling season. So all players are really at peak fitness and going into a World Cup fresh as well, you would think. So I think that bodes for good football.
All right, that's Shay Given speaking to me at the RTÉ launch of our World Cup coverage, and you can check out the details in terms of coverage details and where you can follow the tournament on RTÉ.ie/sport. Just go to the World Cup 2022 section. So before we go, I might just get all your picks for the World Cup, given it's only a couple of weeks away. Obviously, the squads might change as well because the amount of games, the amount of injuries. I might start with you, Anthony, just in terms of at this moment in time, what your pick for the winner will be.
Yeah, it's just to wrap it up, just to wrap back on Arsenal briefly. Like when you look back at Leicester, the lads were chatting about Leicester and that feeling of maybe something's happening here. Leicester won the league with 81 points, and that was 10 points clear of the second place team. So this is what Guardiola's City have done to the league. You finish with 81 points, you're probably going to be 12, 13 points, 14 points off them. So Arsenal have to be perfect just to get close. Liverpool, it's happened to Liverpool a couple of years, and that means that they're going to be watching this World Cup very, very anxiously, like all the clubs. Now, I think there's been noises that they're going to invest again in January. Arsenal, or they're looking to invest again to try and kick on again. But there's a large element of luck with all of these tournaments, and now coming in the middle of the season, it's another factor to it. It's a fairly boring pick for me. I think Brazil have a really good chance, because it's not just that they always have loads of quality, and we think of Brazil, lots of attacking quality, but they're actually a very well balanced team. They don't give up many goals, a lot of clean sheets the last couple of years. And then the other team, and this is sort of heart over head probably, but I would love to see Messi win a World Cup. And I think Argentina are in pretty good shape. So I think gun to the head, Brazil, but I'd love to see Argentina win it.
And David Sneyd.
Well, Cleo, we're gonna just it's one of them where it totally thrown me because it is this time of the year for it. I don't know, but like what Anthony was saying, obviously Brazil, it's maybe not that it's boring to say because it's Brazil, but you look at their attacking talent as well, but also the midfield. They do seem to have a bit of a balance. Argentina do as well. They're not in a serious unbeaten run. But I know I'm reading something about that as well. The fact that because of the Nations League, that's happening.
Yeah, they haven't played any European teams really.
They haven't played. Yeah, so there's that kind of a strange element to it. Like Belgium, is that?
Shay Given went for Belgium as well. Oddly enough,
I know it's because it's one of them where the whole point where they talk about their golden generation maybe has passed a little bit, but like De Bruyne is in serious form, and if he doesn't get injured, like he could very easily be the player of the tournament. And yeah, like I don't know. I think Belgium. I don't think they're 100% past it. I really don't. As a bit of an outsider. So hopefully I've mentioned enough teams there whereby at the end of this I couldn't have stumbled across the right one.
And Keith, you get the final say here now in terms of your pick for the winner. As it stands, obviously, hopefully all players make it to the tournament in terms of fitness.
I have to be honest with you, Raf. I'm a little bit terrified that it could be England. I think this is the best chance. It's their best chance. With it being in November, they're always complaining we have to wait a month before it kicks off. Our players, we don't know what to do. Now they're complaining it's coming too fast. But I know they're missing an awful lot of right backs, but they've got an abundance of talent there. I think I really do. I'm finding it hard to talk myself out of England, but I'm not going to settle on England because I just think France they have that pedigree. I think Mbappe is just lightning quick, and the one thing that you can't defend against is pace. You've seen with Haaland in the Premier League, it doesn't matter how deep you drop, it's just a 5 little dart here or there, and the pace, it's undefendable. I think Belgium, I don't fancy the defence with Alderweireld and Yang Vertonghen there. I just think they get found out a bit, but I would echo. It'll either be Brazil, Argentina, France, England, and the Germans are always in and amongst it as well, so you can't rule out the Germans, but I'll go for England just to get a couple of people backs up, and I don't think I'll be far wrong if I'm honest.
Would you bring Maddison?
I wouldn't, and I don't think Gareth Southgate would either, just because he likes the wing backs. I'm not sure which formation he'll play because of the right back situation, but if he plays the three centre halves with the 2 wing backs, I don't think there's a space for Maddison. And who are you going to take out? Bellingham, Foden, Saka, Harry Kane? None of them are missing out. You know, he might go, he might be on the bench, but for me, you know, he might be a bit part player, but I love him as a player, but with the amount of talent that English team have, and with Gareth Southgate liking the 5 at the back, I think there's just no space for him.
Yeah, it's going to be 26-man squads anyway, so it's not as tight as the last World Cup. Same squad sizes as the last Euros, so he might sneak in, but we'll see. But anyway, off the pitch as well, of course, in terms of Qatar and their hosting of the World Cup, it is paramount what's happening off the pitch. And this week, Declan Woolley has written a piece called Qatar Washing Green Linen in Public. What that piece does, though, it looks into Qatar, or the Qatari authorities' claims of a carbon neutral World Cup. You can find that on RTÉ.ie/sport in the World Cup 2022 section, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just go to the description box at the bottom of this video and you'll find it there. But that's it for this week. We have had a prediction that England could win the World Cup. I'm going to try and process that now for the next hour or so. So Keith Treacy, thanks a million for coming on. David Sneyd as well, and Anthony Pyne.
Thanks, Ross.